All right, we are live. This is episode 51 of the Deconstruction Podcast, brought to you by Jobtable, the simplest way to grow and manage your construction business. As always, let's kick it off with a review here. This is coming from Tina Lenker. This is a mechanical company from Pennsylvania in the US. This software has been just what our commercial small business needed to get us through our redundancy era. The customer support is stellar. If I have a question or a need, they are very responsive. Shout out to Tina.
Really Thank you, Tina.
Johnny, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to all of our listeners. Wishing everybody all the best, continued success, health, prosperity in 2026.
100%. Happy New Year. How's it going?
It's going. You know how it is. First week back is always a little crazy.
Yeah, New Year. Same grind a little bit harder.
That's what I was just going to say. Same grind, but harder.
Yeah, that's it.
So yeah, there's a lot of exciting updates, which we are ready to, or not ready yet, but we will be sharing in the coming weeks with Jobtable, some new updates, some new products. So this is going to be a big year for Jobtable in terms of what we're putting out and just the additional value we're going to provide to trades and companies everywhere. So stay tuned for some announcements coming out very soon. You want to give any hints, John, or what?
No, let's leave it as
let's leave it. Small little.
Let's leave it. Let's leave it. All I'm gonna say is just look at what's happening in the world and where kind of technology is going, and that's the only hint I'll kind of drop there.
I like that. Okay. I like that. All right. Well, a couple topics that I want to talk about today, starting off with something we've been talking about internally with Jobtable, which I think is relevant to any business, right? The concept of ICP, who your ideal customer profile is, who you want to target as a business. And I think this really plays well and goes hand in hand with contractors. You know, it's coming up as well. Not only were we talking about it internally, but there's a comment made on one of our Instagram posts, and I just want to bring it up quickly here, and we'll go from there. So this was just a reel that we put out. Just basically, it's talking about the presentation of quotes and how important it is to present yourself when you're putting out quotes properly and professionally and all that. So one of the comments here was 99% of the time these days, the lowest bid gets the job. You can spend 10 hours writing a quote with 1,000 words. I can send a one sentence with a lower price. Guess who's getting the job? And I replied back with, we hear this a lot too, especially in certain markets. That said, we consistently see contractors who focus their marketing on the right demographics where price isn't the deciding factor. So the reason I want to bring this up is just the concept of, I feel like a lot of construction company owners, and look, I love this industry. I love working, dealing with construction companies. I have so much respect for guys like you and trades and people in this industry. I absolutely love it. But with that being said, for some reason in this industry, I feel like a lot of construction company owners, they think like they're operating in like a very different game than the rest of business. Like, oh, this doesn't apply to construction. You don't understand construction. And I disagree with that, because to me, business is business. There's certain concept in business, whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, you know, who you want to market to, who your ideal customer profile is. It's up to you as the business to create those opportunities and that marketing and those processes to how you want to function. And I get it. There's, it is different. There are certain things where, yeah, construction is different, just like software. There's certain things where software is different, but the core concepts, I think, are universal across business. Business is business. So sticking on the topic of customer profiles. So if you're a construction company, you're operating, what are your thoughts, John, on instead, let's say obviously you're a plumbing company. You have your certain segment. Actually, that's a good example. You operate in commercial. You can say like that's your ICP, commercial companies. Like you don't deal with, smaller residential service, stuff like that. So that's your niche. So what are your thoughts?
So my thoughts, I got a couple of thoughts on this. One, going back to the comment, in a way, the gentleman who commented on our post, that the lowest price gets the job. That's true if you're operating in a certain market. But again, that's why, on our podcast, we talk about a lot that relationship is everything. Because if you do operate in a market, and look, I know some people might say, oh yeah, but you're in commercial, you're in industrial. It actually gets worse when you get into this market more than the housing market, because if you're working with a custom home builder, it's very easy for them to give it to somebody that they trust more than somebody they don't trust just because of the price. So I don't fully agree always that it comes down to price, especially if you're building that relationship. Now, in order to build that relationship, that's where it comes back to the way you're presenting yourself and your company. We talk about this all the time, being punctual, being there on time, what you say you're going to do, you're going to do it. And that transfers, that's why I think we brought that up, because a quote, especially on your initial interaction with the client to do business, other than meeting them and trying to get to know them, is they're being faced with your quote. So when we look at that's why I really wanted to kind of touch base on that, because a lot of my clients and even on this open bid market, you'll see it on a lot of the tender invites that we get, that they all have disclaimers at the bottom saying lowest price will not necessarily win the job. So that's where I really wanted to touch base on that comment, because you hear that a lot, and I could just tell you, just this year alone, and we're only today's January 9th, we've won 2 jobs where we were not the cheapest, but because of the relationship that we had, because of the thoroughness of our quotes, and how we explain it to the client, what we're including, what we're not including, and being totally transparent, and how it's all laid out cleanly, and also because of prior work that we've done to them, the job was given to us other than the lowest bidder. So that's one thing I really wanted to touch base on, because I know a lot of guys out there, they always think that it is the lowest price. Listen, when you're trying to break in to that first client that may have another plumbing company there or another drywall company, sure, you've got to kind of drop your pants to get in there. And again, touching on what you said too, Kosta, it's very true that a lot of us tradesmen, we don't look at it as a sales process. And I think it's because of the labeling that goes behind it, but it is a sales process, because the sales process is, number one, you got to get them to like you. Number two, you got to get them to trust you, at least enough to give you a job, right? To try you out, even though they've been using somebody else for the last 2, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, it doesn't matter. And of course, that initial job, you're going to have to price extremely aggressive just to get your foot in the door. And then what happens is, you do one, the next one you might be a couple % higher, and then so on and so forth until you get to a comfortable margin. But that comfortability comes with kind of the barrier that you have to break through. And focusing on your market is extremely important. We are a very diverse company. We do commercial, we do industrial, we do mid-rise, we do retrofits. But also at the same time, just because of the relationship we have with some of our clients do very high-end custom homes. And we don't do residential. I tell everybody we don't do residential or even service on residential. But if it's a friend, a family member, a client that we've done business for a long time, and they ask us to do it, we're going to do it, right? But at the same time, it is essential when you're building your business to really hone in on that client, on that market that you're trying to tap into. Because if you're trying to tap into, the service in residential, the service in commercial, new builds and ICI projects and mid-rise project all at the same time, you're going to burn out, and you're kind of going to be that jack of all trades, master of none, because you're not going to know how each industry operates specifically.
Yeah. And yeah, great points. And So, I'm thinking about some practical ways now as a contractor. How do you avoid those situations like that person in the comments made, right? About, always being underbid and the lowest bid always gets the job. So, just like any other business, we do this with Jobtable. Most business do this, right? The idea of qualifying your prospect before moving forward, right? Why can't contractors do that too, right? Before you take the time to create that quote and scope it out and put it together and send it, step one should be like having a meeting or a call with that prospect to qualify them first. Maybe they don't pass your test, like questions like what problem are you trying to solve, like what's your budget, when are you trying to get this done by, like how many are you getting quotes, are you looking for the cheapest option, like you got to evaluate whether it's a fit, and this will avoid those tire kickers and put you in front of prospects that are more aligned to what you're trying to build. So again, universal concept, the idea of qualifying your prospect. I don't think I've ever, maybe like one or two companies that I've come across, but like no one seems to do that.
No, they don't. And listen, this is we're going on our 17th year of business. And I can tell you, one of the industries that we cracked into 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it was an industry it was a part of the industry I always wanted to get into. I kept hearing that it's very competitive. It is large work, but the margins are very tight. So when we initially went to go bid, like our pricing, because we were pricing as if you were just pricing, our day-to-day commercial projects. And we were being blown out of the water every single time. Now, luckily, I had enough of a connection with the people that we were pricing to get the feedback, right? To say, hey, just hypothetically, you were at 100,000 and I had three other guys that were at the $72,000 mark. And I'm thinking in my head, like, how? So then what I did was I reverse engineered and I said, how did these guys get here? I talked with my suppliers, I talked with everybody, and I started to figure out the way they did it. But again, that doesn't mean that always the lowest price. Sure, if you're astronomically higher, you're out of the game. You're not even ready for it. And that's what happened initially. I wasn't even ready for it when I was trying to crack that market, right? But I knew going into that market, because we were busy with other things, that this is the time to try to crack it. Because if this market that I'm in gets slower, at least I now have other markets I can kind of dive into. So it's very true that you need to vet not only the client that you're working for, but you need to vet the way your company is structured, right? So if you're saying that you do, just hypothetically, I do 24-hour service 7 days a week, and look, me and Charlie, we had this realization when we first, we were two guys in a truck. We put that all over the truck, 24-hour service 7 days a week, because that's what you saw, and that's, and you were getting that call at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're sleeping in bed, and it's like, oh, I'm not getting up for $250, and it was a realization where it's like, man, we got to take this off the truck. How are we going to do service calls during the day? Do some in the evening, and then go at 3 a.m, and then have to be on site at 6:30 in the morning as well. It's just, so we realized that unfortunately we can't tap into that market, at least not at that point, right? So again, it was knowing your clients. So now when we were approached later on, when we realized the 24-hour service thing at that time, at the beginning of our business, was not the right fit for us, when we were approached for it, at least I could be honest, and I think clients respect that a lot, where it's like, look, from 5:30 a.m. to like 7 p.m., no problem. Anything after that, unfortunately, number one, either I don't have manpower, or number two, just it's out of my market, right? Like it's not something we do, right?
Yeah. I think that's very important, right? I think it's so important to say no to jobs, and like understand, the more you say no, the faster you get to realizing and pinpointing who your real target and who your actual clients are that you want to work with, right? But yeah, I'd love to see more contractors, more companies just qualify better. Say no to jobs that you know is not a good fit. And I know
Or or you
it's
can
hard to do
fail.
that sometimes because look, it's a potential job. You want to, maybe you're slow, but I really strongly believe it's one of these things where you might take a couple steps back, but you might take 5 steps forward once you target on a specific market.
And I notice clients too, they really appreciate the honesty.
For sure.
They really appreciate the honesty because, like you said, Costa, and I think we've said this before on our show. It's one thing. It's one thing, you're slow, and it's one thing to step out of your market and tell people that you can do it. But there's a big risk there as well when you're trying to take on something like you're biting off more than you can chew, and and I get it. A lot of people feel like this. It's like, oh, I don't want to let them down. A lot of construction guys were yes men. We just say yes to everything because we want to please the client. Oh, I really need to move in because I only have this unit until this day. It's like, okay, but sometimes you have to be real, and it's like this is not reality, and you need to turn away that job, or you need to be upfront before you even quote it, before you even say anything. And it's like, well, this is not a real expectation because of A, B, Z, and X, Y, and Z. And a lot of people think that they're going to lose future work from that. They won't lose future work from that. If anything, if somebody takes on that job that is unrealistic, let's just say in this case scenario that we're painting, and somebody fails at that, that client's going to look back and be like, oh, remember when I talked to Kosta and he told me it was not, he was right. He knew what he was talking about. And it happens so many times.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's nothing really else to add about this topic. But again, I think these universal business concepts, sales, qualifying, marketing, I don't care whether you're in construction or anything else, it applies. And I think it comes back to a lot of construction company owners who start off perfecting the craft and being apprentice and learning the trade itself, and then realizing like, hey, I'm good at this, and then you transition to business, and you're hit with that realization. Now you got to learn a whole another craft, which is business and how all these nuances work on how to grow and establish a business and grow a team and all that.
Yeah.
So kind of leading into that, then I think coming into the new year, a lot of people have goals to grow, obviously, and expand. And one of the topics that I think get overlooked or not discussed often enough is the concept of leadership, right? As an owner or CEO or whoever's the captain of the ship, so to speak, you gotta another craft in business is leadership, right? And so touch on that, John. Like, how do you how have you evolved over the years to become a better leader in your business?
That's a kind of a loaded question. I would say a lot of times I feel like I was built for this. I tell everybody I have a passion in plumbing or construction or in software. It's just I have a passion for business. And with business means, unfortunately, a lot of those decisions ride on you, right? Like they're on your shoulders, and you have to make that final call. When the morale on site is low, you got to be able to bring it up. When there's a problem on site, you got to hit it face on. Like you can't run away from it, right? So yeah, the way you evolve is kind of I notice it's always dealing with something from a business sense, right? You kind of put your emotion to the side, and I remember the first couple of years in business, I had to come up, like I had to be faced with reality. And again, I'm not going to go into it, but basically, when we started hiring guys that were working for us and obviously doing much less hours, they were making more money than me and Charlie, And we knew that it has to come a point where that can't be the reality, but because we're in the growing stages, this is what we had to do as business owners, right? You can't come out of the gate just, making what you were making or even more and hiring a bunch of guys. And I just noticed that mine and Charlie's morale was kind of down at one point, and we noticed that it started affecting everybody else. And we were mad and frustrated, and it kind of gives like that aura in the company. So I always bring it back to sports, right? You're down 3-0, like let's take hockey, you're down 3-0, you're in the changing room. What do? You're just gonna fucking roll over and die? You're just gonna take it, or you're gonna give that pep talk, and you're gonna get out there for the third period and you're gonna give it everything you got, and that's what I noticed, like as a leader, just like coming back to sports, the captain, you got to really rise up. When things are down, you gotta find the way, you gotta find the tactics in order to make it work, right? And you're right, Kosta, that is a skill. And look, I know on our podcast, you're typically the host, but that's one thing too that you're really good at, and you're good at driving the ship, right? You're good at making those last minute calls, making those pivots. We talk about that a lot in business. You got to be a chameleon, right? You got to know how to shift and pivot right on the spot, and that all comes from like the leadership, right? And getting back to, that's why I always reference sports. It's the same thing, because I know everybody who's listening, everybody who's in construction, somebody has played sports on a team at one point in their life. And there's a reason why, and I know when we were all kids, there's a reason why some kids had the C on their jersey and some didn't, or, the armband, like in soccer or whatever. And it's like, the reason for it is because they have these leadership skills. And when you're in business, you have to have those leadership skills, because everybody's looking up at you. Like I said, in my company, a lot of my guys are older than me, but they're looking to us for the answers. They're looking to us for the motivation. And just getting back to, like we always say, even as a business owner, you could be, as a construction worker, you could be good at your craft, but if you don't have business like sense, then you're going to be lost as a business owner. And it's the same when it comes to the leadership, right? Those go hand in hand. And getting back to what you were saying earlier too, it doesn't matter if you're in construction, if you're working on Wall Street, it doesn't matter. Like those people at the top, there's a reason why they get paid what they get paid. There's a reason why foremen get paid what they get paid. There's a reason why, that's why there's tiers. And it's because everybody's looking up and looking up and looking up, because there's always a decision that has to be made that's above your head. But when you're the business owner, you are the roof, right? You are that ceiling. And if you're not ready to take that on, like, the house can come falling down. So it's definitely like a skill that you have to possess, right? And putting this question back on you too, Kosta, like, how did you evolve, right? Because you too, I remember, we've been lifelong friends. Like, you built your initial company out of the basement of your parents' house, right? And you grew it to a large team too. And, I've seen you evolve over the years too. And even now being partners and, with Jobtable, and I can see like the way you're a lot quicker on your feet than you were 20 years ago. And you would think the opposite.
Yeah. No, it's you're right when I asked that. It's a loaded question. It's tough to it's tough to kind of pinpoint, because there's a lot of layers to it. But I guess in general, what I realized over the years is, as a leader, you can't build a great company without a great team. You're right. You can't do things alone, and that was a realization I had like very early on, right? You gotta know how to build people up. You gotta have confidence in people, instill that confidence in others. And to me, that's a very important part of being a leader, is how you lead others, and how you're perceived as well. And Yeah, it comes back to me, it's very psychological as well, right? You know, building a great team, you're working with people and understanding people's, you know, everyone's different personalities, different needs, how people react or don't react to certain things. So you got to be very mindful of that as a leader, to keep the ship moving, right? You can't just treat everybody in the same way because a lot of times that could backfire. So to me, that's a very important part of leadership is that aspect to it. You know, can't build a great company without building a great team.
Yeah, and you know, just to touch base on what you just said too, for our Christmas party every year, everybody knows, you know, again, going on to our 17th year, people have been here for a long time, even down to some of the newer guys and kids.
Was this year 17?
That we're going on year 17 now. Yeah. So you know, like the Greeks always do, we just closed year 16, you know, and we're going on to
You're in your
17.
17th year.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's one of those things like at Christmas, we we literally give a speech and we go around, you know, so just picture like, you know, long
I
tables
was
and
there. I've seen them.
yeah, you've seen, you know what I'm talking about, right? And we make a point. We make a point to go to each and every individual in our company and you know, give some great pointers, you know, or you know, like make them stand out, like uplift them, right? Because for example, like one of the kids, we have a co-op student, and this kid is 16 years old, and I'm telling you, like not everybody has met him. Only one crew has met him, and you know, I just had some good things to say about him, and you know, and what that does, it kind of lights a fire under some of the third and fourth years asses to be like, you know, because what I said was basically, this kid's going to be a superstar. He has the grit. He shows up. No bullshit with this guy. You know, he really wants to learn. He has the initiative. And so there's two things that happen. Number one, it shows the whole company that the bosses notice everything you do, and they don't just look at you like a number. They look at you and they credit you for all the hard work you've done and the kind of grind that you put in and day out. But number two, also psychologically, what it does is for all the other guys looking around, you know, even though we touch on every individual, maybe something was said about the guy you're working with that you wish was said about you. So, or maybe something was said that you feel that you've kind of lacked this year. And what happens, right? Just psychologically, think about it, right? Even if you grew up with siblings and your mom and dad were saying, you know, oh, see Charlie over here, didn't he do such a good job, you know, cleaning the house and just like taking care of you guys. What happens to that younger sibling, or the older sibling? It's like, well, you know, I want to be credited for that too. And it's like, well, you know, if something wasn't said, maybe you gotta, you know, you got to work on it, right? So again, the leadership is a huge thing because you're driving the ship, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. There's a lot of layers to that, but yeah, that's something I think a lot of listeners, owners got to think about is how you can step up being a leader. Like this is why it's so crazy. We're like we talked about this. We talk about this so much on this podcast about the craft of business. Like this craft. Like it's different than learning a trade where it's like, yeah, you never stop learning as a trade. There's always new skills, new tools, new techniques. But, you know, you kind of get to a point in general where, you know, you're kind of like a master plumber. Like you can kind of like, you know, do it all. Is that fair to say in general?
Yes and no. You are like if you're a master plumber, you've been doing it a lot. Like trust me, yes, 100%. There's not many things you can't do, but
Yeah.
I always go back to, you know, if you're not waking up and learning something new every day, it's a waste of a day.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what I'm getting at is I think the craft of business is more so. Like look at us. Like we're both in business, like call it 20 years on our own. And I feel like what I've learned in business, like I haven't even scratched the surface. Like I consider myself still a rookie, You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So it's a totally different game. You cannot stop learning the craft of business, and just whatever it takes, consuming information, practicing that information, instilling it in your day to day. I think it's just an overlooked thing that more people got to focus on.
Yeah, and I feel just to touch base on exactly what you said there too. I feel like as a business owner, it's all on yourself to evolve, right? So getting back to that first question, when I said it's kind of a loaded question on what I've done over the years, one thing I kind of like didn't even think about. So, like I said, I didn't even finish high school. And I remember, I don't even have grade 10. And I remember coming out of school and going straight into the trades at, I wasn't even 16. Like legally, I wasn't even able to drop out. I was a couple months away from turning 16 where you can actually legally drop out. And I went straight into plumbing. But where I was going with this is when I left school, I can tell you, I probably read one book in all my school career, right? When I came out of school and I started to become a plumber, obviously, again, I was young, making money. I was worrying about partying and girls and, all that until, I started to reach, my fourth and fifth year where I knew this was my career and I knew that one day I wanted to own my own thing. And you just start self-teaching. So, I've read more books than I ever had in my life. I'm constantly, even us, Kosta, like we do a book club. I know a lot of people, when I tell that to some of my friends who are in construction, it's like, you're in a book club? And it's like, yeah, man, it's not like we sit around inside a library, but like we'll bounce books off each other and we'll talk about it, right? Because they're self-building, right? So that's one huge way because you're ever evolving, right? Whether you're reading, you name it, right? Like there's certain books that just hit hard. Like one of the kind of introduction that I recommend to everybody is like Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? That was like one of them that put a lot of the concept of business in my mind and kind of gave me a real vision of what an entrepreneur should and should not do, right? Like what it looks like to get into it and coming from immigrants where they just want you to get a comfortable job and stuff like that. So that was like a big book, a big milestone for me. And that's how you kind of like ever evolve, right? You got to always evolve. As a business owner, you got to be 10 steps ahead. Not only what's happening in your market, on where you want to be in 5 years, where you want to be in 10 years, what type of work you're doing, this month, next month, 3 months. You always got to be ahead of the curve, right? Like that's what it is. And no matter what you want to look at it, like you said at the beginning of this podcast, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. You look at war, right? There's a reason why you got your armies and then you got your generals and then you got your, it's all about leadership. And it's those people that have taken it upon themselves to build on their skill to get to that next level where they're able to handle more, right? They're able to handle more. And it's no different with even like a family dynamic, right? I remember when I had one kid, when I had my first kid, I thought to myself, oh my God, this is a lot of work. Obviously it's beautiful. It's a lot of work. I don't know how people do it with 2 and 3. Then I had a second kid and I look back at the first, just having one and having one is easy, and then having 2 was hard. And then, and then you go and have your third kid and now you look back, so it's always pushing yourself to those limits, right? Pushing your threshold, pushing your mind, pushing your leadership skills. Evolve.
And just to add to that as well, I think nowadays more than ever, there's no excuse not to learn. Like just the amount of information that's available and accessible. Any problem or business issue or something you're thinking about in your life, in business, someone else has experienced that, solved it, and overcome it, and has documented it. So like, we're living in an age where like there's zero excuse. Like you can get answers to literally everything from real people's experiences. So yeah.
And it's funny. And it's funny. Just on the same topic. Remember we talked about it last week, right? And let's just air this. It's not like it's a secret or anything. But we were talking about Elon Musk, right? So here's a prime example. Here's somebody. What did you say? The guy The guy started a company, he made $100 million off of PayPal, something like that. He put it all into Tesla. Literally, they didn't know how to manufacture, slept in the factories, 7 days a week. Obviously, what comes with that? You neglect your family, you do this, you do that. And it's like, look, man, that guy was able to scale mountains that we can only dream to do. But you want to know a reality? After our conversation, Kosta, I've come to reality that I will never be like Elon, right? Why? Because even though I have so much drive, that dedication to do what he did, I know that I can't give that dedication. You know what I mean? Like, I cannot give that dedication where for the next 10 years, like my personal life's going to suffer, my family life's going to suffer, raising my kids is going to suffer. So I know that I'll never build companies like Elon, which I'm okay. I know I won't be like close to a trillionaire, right? But I know my goals and where I want to go. And I know that where I am right now, I still need a lot more building to do.
Yeah. No,
right.
And that's a key point too. Just having the self-awareness, and it's fine. You don't want to be a trillionaire. You have other goals, and yeah, but at the same time, your ambitions have to align with your actions, right? So, if you want to, let's say you have a goal of being, worth $1 billion, and you're spending your evenings watching Netflix and, playing games, it's like your actions are not aligned with your goals. And a lot of people fall into that as well. But touching on that, the last thing I want to say about this is I think the best way to learn and grow is by putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, because you don't realize when your back's against the wall, like what comes out of you, like the real desire, the passion, that like you're forced to grow, and those are the best circumstances to grow, is if you're just in any uncomfortable situation.
Yeah. Don't get too comfortable. I remember we had this conversation too. Stop living on easy street, right? Especially, listen, some people, they like where they are. They don't want to grow. They don't want to get smaller. They like the lane that they're operating in. I just had this conversation on the weekend with one of our users who's a friend of ours. And I just said, I go, look, that's good. You can operate in your lane, but are you staying at least on top of, in your industry? Are you staying on top of, new products? Are you learning about the new products? Are you this? Because if you're staying on easy street, but you're also not evolving in the sense of knowing what the new products are that are coming out, knowing on how to install them, knowing on how to offer them, talking with your suppliers to get the best pricing or to get it the quickest with, the least amount of lead times, like whatever it is, are you at least staying on top of that? Right.
Yeah, for sure. And when you talk about like how to, put yourself in uncomfortable situations, practically speaking, the best way to do that is to take some risk, because that's very uncomfortable in a lot of cases, depending on the kind of risk. But that's, to move forward, you have to take risk. Life, business, it's a game of risk.
Yeah. No, what's saying? No, no risk, no reward,
No
right?
risk, no reward. Yeah.
Yeah.
And back to learning, like you just said, right? Like trade shows. Like we just did a trade show. We're gonna do, a couple more this year. And I respect the attendees at these shows. Like we have a booth and we meet a lot of contractors coming through, and those are the guys I respect the most, right? Like they're taking time out of their day to just learn and absorb and see new products, new tools, speak to people, get ideas. That's another one of an infinite number of ways you can learn. There's trade shows all the time in your industry. You just got to find them and
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it gets back to like that evolving, right? You gotta always evolve. You gotta always look at, I just get back to that saying all the time. If you wake up and, you go to work and you didn't learn something new, I don't care if you've been an electrician for the past 40 years. If you can look at me as an electrician and say, I know it all, I know everything, then, I really don't think, I really think that you're missing the whole point, because All it takes is, for, on an electrician's point, all it takes is for, switches to go to Bluetooth, and it's like, hey, how do you hook this up? It's like, well, I haven't seen this before, right?
Exactly.
So it's like, so you don't know it all, right?
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Very good. I guess last topic to discuss here. It's a new year. Still a lot of uncertainty out there with where things are going. Last podcast we had with Manny, there's a lot of like optimism, and this is the year where positivity, optimism, collaboration. But there's a report that I just came out, I think yesterday or the day before, in Canada, where unemployment rose to 6.8%. So only 8,200 jobs added in December, which increased the unemployment rate to 6.8%. So, you look at this and just, world events, geopolitical events, and, we're in Canada, so we're talking about that. But what do you think? What's 2026 looking like?
I told you before we started this pod, I'm going to give some off screen. I want this to be positivity. 2026 is the beginning of a new year. I know there's a lot of shit that the world is going through. Whether you're in the US, whether you're in Canada, whether you're in Europe, there's like you look around, there's just shit from every side of this planet that is going wrong. And I just look at everybody, and even my friends that I talk to on a daily basis, weekly basis, even throughout the holidays. You see a lot of negativity, and it's because of what's going on. And all I want to say to all of our listeners, all of our users, anybody who's just listening to this snippet is, let's bring back positivity. And I know that's an easy thing to say, but let's look at it like collectively, and even the way we speak to each other, even the way that we have an outlook on something. When a door closes, more doors are going to open. Stop leaving things in the hands of other people. Go out and get it. This is more of a motivational speech than anything else. Be positive. It's going to happen. Whether 2026 was a grind for you and then you start seeing things in 2027, remember, if you didn't grind in 26, the things that are happening good in 27 won't happen. You need to grind in order for that to happen. So get out, get off your ass, go do it. I promise you, no matter what the unemployment rates show, no matter what, there's something. Show up. If you're a worker and you're laid off, get off your ass. Look at the companies in a certain area that you want to work for, and just go there in the morning. Knock on the door. Put your boots on. Have your tools in your truck. Just be ready to go. And that's what I want to say to everybody. Like, positivity. We can turn this around as a nation of people. Again, whether you're in Canada, the US, I don't care where you are. It's up to us, right? We can't look at these people that are essentially controlling every country around the world. Let's just say 100,000 people that are going to control, how 8 billion people feel. Fuck it. It's up to us. Let's go out there. Let's make something happen. Let's scrounge up some business. Let's make it a good year for your family, for you guys. Like Kosta said at the beginning of the podcast, 2026 is all about good health, wealth, prosperity, happiness. And we need to do it. We need to do it as a community. I hope everybody listening, this really resonates with you, because I'm tired of being like doom and gloom. I hear it all day, every day, from the guys I work with, from, watching it on Instagram, just the constant feed that you're getting. And I'm fucking sick of it. I don't know if you guys feel the same. I'm fucking sick of it. I want positivity. I want laughs. Even if it's a fucking shit day, get together with a group of friends, your brothers, somebody, you know what I mean? And just like by the time you go to bed, have laughs, man. You know what I mean? Like, that is the best remedy, right? It truly is.
Yeah, good message. I mean, it's very easy to go negative and look at all the bad and the doom and gloom. But you're right. It's like what we say, motto I live by: no plan Bs. More people have to live with that mindset, right? You decided to get into business for yourself. Have that mentality of no plan Bs. Like a plan B is a plan for failure. Like once you've instilled that tiny grain of doubt in your head, which essentially is a plan B, you're planning for failure. Your chances of failure have now exponentially increased because you've put that in your head. So fuck it. No plan Bs. Get out there, like you said, every single day, progress, move forward. And even if you're progressing, 0.2% every single day, compounded over 365 days, you've progressed a lot. You just got to keep doing that every single day, and you cannot let up.
Yeah, yeah,
Foot on the gas.
100%.
No
And
plan
look,
Bs.
it's even to go beyond that. I just say, even today in my office, I had to have a talk with one of my employees because of all the shit that's going around in the world. I said, fuck it, and it's like, well, what do you mean, fuck it? Like, look at this, look at that. Like, what's going to happen? Or is there World War III? Is there this? Is there that? It's like, buddy, if that's what you're focused on all day, every day, it's going to transfer into the way you feel, and that's what I mean by aura, right? Like getting back to, again, we talked about on this episode itself. It's like, being that leader. It's like, fuck it. Smile as much as you can in a day. I'm telling you, it's going to make you feel better. Start working out, do whatever you got to do to feel better. Because when you feel better, you're going to operate better. You know what I mean? You got to operate at your optimum level. Like you got to get out there. And what I notice is what's going on around the world, from what happened with COVID a few years ago, down to, what just happened, in Venezuela, like all this shit going on, it's hitting us from every angle, and you can see it in people. You walk through a mall, you walk through anywhere, people, they don't even smile at you anymore. They don't. So let's turn that around, right? Like let's make this a year of positivity, right? Especially Canadians and even the Americans, right? Like we were some of the nicest people, You go around the world, they're not saying the same thing about us. Why? Because I feel like the feeds, we're constantly getting bombarded, right? Let's make this into a year of like positivity, happiness. Let's all make it happen.
Well said. Nothing else to add there. Let's, I guess, cap it there. Good positive message to wrap this up. Last thing, good conversation. Just to wrap this up, though, if you are a contractor looking to level up, step up your game this year, clean up your processes, check out Jobtable. Go on jobtable.com. If you're any construction company, trade business owner, check it out. End to end, whether you're doing quotations, invoicing, managing jobs, scheduling, timesheets to manage your employees, financial reports. Might surprise you how simple and easy a software and how much further ahead you could be by implementing something like Jobtable for your business. So do check it out. And if you are listening on any, wherever you're listening to this, make sure you subscribe if you got any value from this, and so you don't miss any further episodes. And that's it. Anything else to add, John?
No, just Happy New Year to all, and I wish everybody all the best this year.
Likewise, Happy New Year. Thank you to everyone, and we'll talk soon. All right.